Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room Rewatches Queer as Folk, episode 10. So, episode 10 is called Surprise, and that's it. uh, so, not much context given, but I'm joined with a very exciting guest, someone who I've actually had on my bookshelf for a while, since 2018, without actually getting to meet him. So, this is a pleasure. I am joined with writer, therapist, and pleasure activist who is coming from New York City, Don Shewey. So, Don is a journalist, critic. He's published 3 books about theater, written hundreds of articles for not any shabby publication, the New York Times, The Village Voice, Esquire, Rolling Stone. He has chronicled his psychosexual spiritual adventures and essays that have been included in anthologies, including The Politics of Manhood, Best of the Best Gay Erotica, The Queerest Art, Essays on Gay and Lesbian Theater, and Men Like Us. His book that I am going to be chatting about is called Daddy, Lover, God, A Sacred Intimate Journey. But the one that I actually first had from 2018 is called The Paradox of Porn, Notes on Gay Male Sexual Culture. So I'm so thankful for Don to be here and to recap episode 10. So welcome, Don, to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room.
Thanks for inviting me, Andrew. But you had me watch episode 11 of Queer
I
as
mean,
Folk.
sorry, episode 11. It
All
is
right.
episode 11. I know. I like one time joked with a guest here that there's going to be a time where I did the wrong episode, but no, it is episode
All right.
11.
There we go.
Uh, and episode 11 is called Surprise. Um,
Oh, right.
so yeah. Thank you for joining. Right away, I have to ask you about the age of 30, since Michael is turning 30 years old, Ted is 33, and Brian says to Ted, well, basically, you're dead. Uh, so how do you feel us being an intergenerational queer male dynamic right now? I'm a millennial. I'm assuming you're a baby boomer, but I know what they say about assuming. Um, so are you a baby boomer?
Uh, I guess uh, technically I'm a baby boomer. Yeah.
Okay. But what did you think about this turning 30 basically being the end of your life?
I think that's a hideous, toxic myth that I hate that even TV shows promote that.
Yeah. Do you think it's something that's even more charged in the queer male community?
I just don't, I don't know. Not my community.
Yeah. So, you know, what kind of community are you a part of, or even like Queer as Folk? Was this something that you had watched when it first came out in the 2000s?
Well, I'll say this. I should probably admit that I'm a total snob about TV shows, and I'm super picky about what I watch and what I don't watch. I watched the entire British run of Queer as Folk, which I enjoyed. I thought it was well done. I watched most of the first season of the American version, and I disliked it intensely. So just starting there, I get that, there's something fun about a TV show where everybody's gay, but I just not a fan of the show in general because it, promotes all these toxic stereotypes about gay men. The casting is extremely bland and homogeneous, and we look at it now and it's like, really? That's really that was revelatory. I get that for some people it was revelatory because it was, some version of a mainstream TV show where everybody's gay. And there's something sweet about that. But man, do I have a lot of critique of the show as, you know, as written. So I'm just
Well,
being
I
really
love the
upfront
critique.
about it.
No, you do not have to be a lover of the show. Actually, I sometimes find the most engaging conversations and is when you're a critic of a show. It'll bring out some interesting points. So I'm assuming that me having you watch episode 11 was the first time you returned to this show. Um,
Correct.
since its beginning, premiere.
Right. So when I think back to when I was 30, it was a different time. Uh, before social media, before Queer as
Mhm.
Folk. But I always grew up in, I'm not every gay guy, but I always wanted to get older. I always admired older people. I'm an intellectual. I'm a political activist. I was raised as a, baby feminist as much as a gay activist. And for me, all my boyfriends were always older than I. And, for me, I had no attachment to staying young, like young and well. I'm not smooth. I'm super hairy. So the idea of being a young hairless twink, I never wanted to be that. It was never my erotic
Mhm.
attraction. I always wanted knowledge, experience, spiritual growth, intellectual growth, and I always looked to older people as repositories of that. So I never wanted to stay young. I never like there are a lot of people for whom high school was like their finest time. That was not my story at all. I was looking forward to, there. I grew up with the expression "life begins at 40," so looked forward to being 40. Uh, so that's a totally different attitude from the one of, that I will say I find it very disappointing that a TV show like Queer as Folk will just even put out the idea that, oh, after you're 30, the day after you turn 30, you're going to be wearing Depends. Really? What world does that exist in? Come on. That's so implausible. It's so
Yeah.
bogus.
Yeah. Did you grow up then in the New York area, or like you've been basically a New Yorker ever since you've moved to this city?
Yeah, I mean, I am a New Yorker. I've been a New Yorker since before you were born, I'll bet. But my father was in the military, so I moved all over the place. So I became worldly at an early age.
Yeah. So do you feel like watching this show, um, like being a New Yorker for a while, like knowing the Hell's Kitchen scene or the Greenwich Village scene, like adult porn cinemas, like that whole experience, was that something, the bathhouse culture, like was that something that you were a part of, or you like took issue with certain aspects of what that was promoting in the queer male culture of New York City?
No, I mean, my first apartment in New York was in the West Village. I moved to New York in 1980. So I was there in the thick of the West Village, which was, um, back then, that was the center of gay life in New York. It very quickly in the next several years turned into also kind of the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic. So I lived through all of that. Um, but I, really came out in Boston in the late 70s in the midst
Mhm.
of a very politically active community and was where coming out was embraced as a political act. That's where I really got my chops as a gay kid. So, my boyfriend was a lawyer, one of the first openly gay lawyers in Boston, and he kind of showed me the ropes and took me around to, the cruising areas and, gave me very specific instructions and how to go to the baths and what it was like and what to expect and all of that stuff. It was great. That was at a time when that's how you learned about gay life is from your peers and mentors if you were lucky to have um, mentors or friends or boyfriends who would show you the ropes, again, way before, the internet or social media.
Yeah. Do you think the show, like even with your critiques, do you think though showing this dynamic of men, like this mentorship in a way, is something that was revolutionary or still isn't seen as much on TV or film, is a group of queer men expressing their relationships or doubts, questioning their decisions and trying to support each other?
Well, clearly, the situations that show up in the show are ones we recognize from life. Like in this episode, there's I don't remember the names of the characters. To me, they all kind of look alike.